Welcome, everyone, to the Black Friday edition of Fair Territory. I'm Ken Rosenthal here with Alanna Rizzo. We hope everyone enjoyed their Thanksgiving with their families, enjoyed their turkey, whatever else they might have eaten. We hope everyone is shopping with great pleasure and getting bargains all over the country today. But we're going to talk about some baseball. And Alanna, we had some big news right before the holiday, did we not?
We did. Ken, great to be with you. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I tell you what, Blake Snell doesn't have to worry about getting any sales on Black Friday because he just got paid by the Los Angeles Dodgers. There's a lot of controversy that comes with this, though. Ken, what's your takeaway from it?
Alanna, throughout the game's history, whenever the rich have gotten richer, you've had fans of other teams that don't have that kind of money, complaining about the sport's imbalance. This has gone on since the turn of the 20th century, right? At the same time, I do have a concern that the disparity between the haves and have-nots is getting even larger than it has been. And we see that with the Dodgers spending, of course. We know the Mets are going to spend, perhaps on Soto. Maybe the Yankees get Soto. It's these teams, the Red Sox are joining them this offseason. The Blue Jays seem to want to spend money as well, that are at one level in terms of what they want to spend. And then there are the other teams to varying degrees at lesser levels. Now, I want to qualify this by saying some of those teams, and we can probably name them off the top of our heads, should be spending more money. And we'll discuss that as the show goes on. But at the same time, when you're talking about resources available, this is an ongoing concern in the sport. And with the labor agreement expiring after the 2026 season, Alanna, I'm getting worried. And I'm getting worried because why? Every time we have a labor negotiation in this sport, there is trouble. And we also have a situation where Rob Manfred, the commissioner, wants to get into national packages with major streaming companies. And he's got nearly 2/3 of the teams that he thinks will be on board after the 28th season. Now, how do you get all of the teams? That's going to be difficult. Nevin Drellick wrote a great article about this recently in The Athletic. But to get the big market teams on board, what you're going to have to do is tell them, all right, you're going to share your money here, but you won't have to share it in other places. And this ultimately leads to the question of a salary cap. And the question of a salary cap has been one this sport has grappled with throughout its labor history. And I expect the owners to bring it up again, as I said on Foul Territory Wednesday. And I expect that it's going to be a major issue. And if the owners are hell-bent, in this particular case, on imposing a salary cap, guess what, Alanna? We're going to have a work stoppage. And that would be the worst thing that could happen to this sport when it's experiencing right now a bit of a renaissance with the new rules and some stars and all the good things that are going on.
When you look at the Blake Snell contract, Ken, a lot of people are talking about the fact that once again, the Dodgers have found a way to sign a marquee player with deferred money. Of course, when Shohei Ohtani signed that $700 million deal, the majority of it was deferred. Freddie Freeman has a deferred contract. Mookie Betts has a deferred contract. And now Blake Snell appears to have a deferred contract. What do you make of that with the fact that the Dodgers can sign all of these players, but certainly have changed the rules of the game in terms of the way that they're going about the contract terms?
First of all, Alanna, it's perfectly permissible within the rules of the game. Within the collective bargaining agreement, you can defer money as long as you fund it and account for it to Major League Baseball, show how you're going to pay it out in the future seasons. So the Dodgers are doing nothing illegal here. Other teams have deferred contracts over the past many years as well. It's not that unusual. The question becomes, is this a problem for the sport? And I don't see the owners having a problem with it because this is a way for them to lower their luxury tax number. The deferrals ultimately lead to lower present day values of these contracts, and that's how the luxury tax is calculated, by the average annual present day values of each deal. And I don't see the union having a problem with it because ultimately in Blake Snell's case, the number that is out there and will be out there recorded for history is $182 million. The present day value is going to be somewhat less, but the union wants the bigger numbers to push the salary scale forward. So I saw one suggestion the other day, and I mentioned this too on Foul Territory, by the MLB executive burner account. I don't know who that cat is, but he has some interesting thoughts from time to time. And he said, hey, the one thing that needs to change is the Dodgers, in particular, getting away with lowering their luxury tax numbers on all these guys, Ohtani going from 70 to 43 or whatever the number is, because of the deferrals. The number that should count against Ohtani's luxury tax is 70 million, not 43 or 46. I tend to agree with that. I don't know if that's a change the union would accept because obviously it's going to lead to higher luxury tax numbers, teams paying more tax, teams resisting that. But at the same time, that's where, to me, the inequity comes in.
Ken, what happens in terms of change of ownership or the change of hands in terms of a team? For example, I'm just throwing a team out there that has been in talks of selling, the Angels with Artie Moreno. Let's say there are a lot of deferred contracts. How does that look in the future if a team decides that they want to sell because the ownership group, I would imagine, is still on the hook for that deferred money?
Absolutely right. And that obligation gets transferred to the next owner. And in the sale negotiations, it all gets accounted for. So in the Dodgers case, with the incredible amount of deferred money they have, it's almost $1 billion at this point, I believe. The next ownership, I'm sure Mark Walter and the Guggenheim Group's not going to own the team forever, is going to be on the hook for some or all of that money. So you see the numbers right there, $964 million of deferred payments they've signed or agreed to since July 2020. It's an incredible number. If the Dodgers sell, yeah, the next ownership will be on the hook. But at the same time, the next ownership's going to say, guess what, guys? We're not paying X when we're taking on all that deferred money. We'll pay Y.
Yeah, it's crazy to think all of this deferred money. But again, let me ask you this. When the fans get upset that, oh my goodness, this is bad for baseball. And you and I had talked about the fact that if the Dodgers were to go out and sign Juan Soto, it could be bad for baseball because you have a $700 million player in Ohtani and you have perceivably a $600 million player in Juan Soto. But what about the fans that are upset about this? The other 29 teams, Ken, do not have handcuffs on their wrist. They do not have guns to their head that says they cannot spend. The owners have the opportunity to spend. Some just choose not to. Am I right in saying that?
I believe you are absolutely right, Alanna. And again, when you're in a market like Cleveland or Tampa Bay or Pittsburgh, you do not have the resources, the local media revenue, all the different things that the Dodgers or the Yankees have. We all understand that. At the same time, can some of those teams, not all, but some, spend more than they are? Yes, they can definitely spend more. And it doesn't mean they get a Juan Soto, of course, but it means that they can compete on a higher level. And this question of having these monster teams, these superstar teams, has been one that has come up in recent years, in particular, as this spending has increased with the Dodgers. And on one hand, I think it's good for the game to have a target, to have a team that everybody can't stand, everybody else but those particular fans of the Dodgers, and wants to get and wants to beat. Diamondbacks were thrilled to do it a couple of years ago. The Padres were thrilled to do it. It's a cool thing when those teams can act as David slaying Goliath. At the same time, as I go back to what I talked about initially at the top of the show, there's a concern here that it gets to be too much. Now, for all the Dodgers spending last season, remember, they were still running bullpen games in the postseason, and guess what? Even with the group that they've assembled, and even if they get Sasaki, it might be the same next postseason. Who knows who's going to get to the finish line out of their starting pitchers? But at the same time, if you're a fan in Cleveland or Pittsburgh or Tampa Bay or any of the smaller markets, some of the smaller markets now that are experiencing kind of payroll neutrality or not increasing their payroll because of the local television situation, Seattle and Minnesota are two that come to mind. It's got to be frustrating. Of course it's frustrating. And yes, it's more satisfying to knock off a big money team when you're one of those clubs, but it's also more difficult.
Yeah, no question about that. All right, now time for Grillin Ken. Let's get those questions in. All right, Ken. So the one thing I wanted to ask you first before we get to some of these great questions from our viewers and our listeners is there is reportedly at least 5 offers, legitimate offers for the services of right fielder Juan Soto. Obviously, he's known for his bat, not necessarily for his defense, but that is the position that he plays in the field. What are the 5 offers in terms of, we're not talking necessarily apples to apples here, are we not?
No, I don't know that we are. And certain teams could be offering 15 years. Certain teams could be offering 13. Certain teams could be offering short-term deals at high average annual values. If you remember, 2019, when Bryce Harper was a free agent, the Dodgers did not make him a 13-year offer like the Phillies did. They made him a 3-year offer. I believe it was something like 35 million to 40 million a year, which at the time was a big, big average annual value. Would it shock me if the Dodgers were doing something along the same lines with Soto? No, it would not shock me. And these offers, granted, I expect that in the end, the Red Sox, Yankees, Mets, Blue Jays, Dodgers, perhaps, will all be in the same neighborhood, up in the $600 million range, 13 to 15 years, opt-outs, the whole deal. But it's not always apples to apples. And I'll go back to Yamamoto, too. Last offseason, if you remember, the Yankees offered him, it was $300 million as opposed to the Dodgers' $325 million. But the Yankees offered a shorter deal with a higher AAV, earlier opt-outs. So it wasn't apples to apples. It was a different kind of deal. He ultimately just preferred the Dodgers.
All right, we'll see if Juan Soto ends up back with the New York Yankees, if he goes just across town to the New York Mets, or if he's out of the Big Apple entirely. And let's stick with the Yankees as far as Grillin Ken is concerned. Oscar Hightower wants to know this. Does Hal Steinbrenner have any Yankee legacy aspirations for himself? If so, how does that relate to signing Soto?
I don't know, Alanna, that Hal Steinbrenner worries about his legacy. He is in great financial position. Of course, he owns the New York Yankees. He's okay. But at the same time, he has said he's aware of the noise. He's aware of what fans are saying about how the Yankees cannot lose Soto, to the Mets in particular, to the Red Sox in particular. And he is aware also of the pressure on him to re-sign this player. Now, if the Yankees lose Soto, all is not lost. They can go sign one of the big starting pitchers, Burns or Fried. They can go get Christian Walker, maybe Willie Adames, maybe Alex Bregman. They can do a number of different things that ultimately might put them as a team in an even stronger position. I'm not saying you don't want Juan Soto. Of course you want Juan Soto. He is a transcendent superstar. But if that happens, if the Yankees lose Soto, who is going to get the blame? It's going to be Hal Steinbrenner. It's going to be Hal Steinbrenner because he did not go to the lengths that whichever team that signs him, whether it's the Mets, the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, the Dodgers, went to get Juan Soto. And remember, Juan Soto was a Yankee last season. Now, the Yankees were never going to sign him before he got to free agency. Juan was always headed to free agency, but they had the inside track. And they had the inside track because they got acclimated to him. He got acclimated to them. The relationship seemed to be good. So yes, Hal Steinbrenner's legacy, whether he is mindful of it or not, whether he cares about it or not, it's certainly on the line.
I will never fault a player for testing the free agent waters. I will never fault a player. If he gets $600 million, good for him. Is there a case in which, Ken, that you could make that Juan Soto, not being a two-way player like Shohei Ohtani, is not worth $600 million, even if that is what the market will bear?
Alanna, I remember writing early on, I don't know, maybe it was April or so, that he was going to be a $500 million guy. And fans jumped all over me. He's not Ohtani. What are you talking about? The difference with Soto, what distinguishes him as a free agent is he is such a young free agent, and he has accomplished so much at a young age. He is entering his age 26 season. He is one of the most accomplished 25 and under players of all time. And yes, defensively, base running, it's not great, but the rest of it in the batter's box, oh my gosh, it's historically great. So I am always one like you who believes that players are worth what the market will bear. And I don't care if sports writers make X and teachers make X. It's what the market will bear for each particular performer. And that's true in entertainment. It's true in baseball. It's true in other sports as well. And listen, if a team deems he's worth that much, you can make the case that based on his performance, the 7 or 8 WAR seasons he might give you consistently for several years, plus the credibility he gives your franchise, plus the marketing ability and all the different intangibles that he brings, you can make the case that in a baseball sense, not in a real world sense, but in a baseball sense, that he is worth the money.
Yeah, I thought that it was going to be Juan Soto as the first Scott Boras domino to fall. I was incorrect. It was Blake Snell, but maybe that first one to fall gets the other ones going. All right, the next question here on Grillin Ken comes from Thomas. We appreciate you participating. Which non-tendered player most intrigues you? Austin Hayes and Kyle Finnegan are appealing to Thomas. Also, why didn't Washington and Colorado just trade these guys at the deadline?
Thomas, good question. And I don't know who you're talking about with Colorado because those Austin Hayes and Kyle Finnegan didn't play for Colorado. Brendan Rodgers did. They didn't trade him, but he didn't have the value that those two players did. Hayes and Finnegan are two of the most intriguing to me. I wrote about Hayes this week. He had this kidney infection during his time with the Phillies. It was awful. It really compromised him. He wasn't the same player. The Phillies non-tendered him because he was going to make about $6.4 million. Finnegan is an intriguing guy too. Not a strikeout guy, really. A guy who gives up hard contact, and yet he gets the job done. Now, the Nationals, yes, they should have traded him at the deadline. I would agree with that. And I'll give you one more name as well. Patrick Sandoval. Tommy John surgery in June. The Angels non-tendered him rather than pay him, I believe it was in the $6 million range, because he's not going to pitch this season. Well, yes, but he is under club control for another season. And a team that signs him likely would sign him to one of these 2-year deals in which they expect him to be coming back in that second year and making a real contribution. Sandoval at his best is, I don't know, a number 3 or maybe even better. And that's an intriguing guy who I believe is going to get a lot of action.
All right, let's ask you this question. I don't know that this is an easy question to answer, Ken, but the question is out there from David Diamantis. How would you fix the Marlins? I'm not sure we have enough time here on Fair Territory.
Well, David, I have a simple answer. And Alanna, you're right. We could go point by point and talk about how to fix this team in each particular area. But the simple answer is get a new owner. Bruce Sherman has not been a good steward of this franchise. I am sorry. There is no way you can say he is. And I will even say this. This week they let go of a play-by-play man, Paul Severino, Alanna, who we both have worked with. Mm-hmm. This guy's one of the better play-by-play men in baseball, and it was just another Marlins inexplicable, seemingly cost-cutting move. Where are you guys going? Now, I know where they're going. They're trying to adopt the Tampa Bay model on the field and produce a cheaper team that's going to be more efficiently run. Okay, fine. But you know what? You had something going pretty good. And it wasn't perfect. Kim Ng wasn't perfect as a GM, and they had some holes, and maybe they got a little bit lucky that one year they made the playoffs. But this is a team that, to me, would benefit greatly from a new owner. And you might ask, well, are they the only team that would benefit from a new owner? Someone asked me this today, and I came up with about 10 teams. I'll list them for you, actually. Minnesota's for sale. Pittsburgh, we've talked about at length. The Cubbies, what are they doing? The Angels, Artie Moreno, I think it's time. Cincinnati, Bob Castellini, it's time. Chicago White Sox, Jerry Reinsdorf, it's high time. Seattle, Oakland, Washington, they've been for sale, they've not been for sale, and of course, Colorado. That's about 10 clubs that really could use better ownership.
No question about that. I certainly agree with you on that list. I don't think the Cubs will ever sell, at least no time while you and I are still in this industry. But some of those other teams certainly could use a new perspective, if you will. I mean, just back to the Marlins for a second. There has to be something to say if Kim Ng decides, nope, I don't think I need somebody above me telling me what to do, and leaves, and then they don't even make the postseason the next year. Skip Schumacher at the beginning of the season says, I'm not coming back the following year. Derek Jeter didn't want to be part of that ownership group. So it's interesting to see what will happen there, and if they do, in fact, get a new owner. Never an easy fix, but that's what Ken has to say about that. All right, let me ask you another question here in Grillin Ken. When it comes to certain situations, Ken, with teams that have these star players, but they don't necessarily want to give, like, for example, let me just go back to the Dodgers for a second. Could they still, if they signed, obviously Blake Snell hasn't been made official yet, Roki Sasaki is not going to be a high price tag. Could they still get him? Walker Buehler, they haven't shut the door on Walker yet. Are there enough innings to sign guys that have these marquee names? Because obviously, as we saw in 2024, you can go into the season with some starters, but everybody ended up on the injured list. Do they take the best player on the board like they do in football and find the innings for these people? Or do they not do that and just say, okay, we're closing the door on our starting rotation, presuming that Clayton Kershaw and like a Dustin May are going to be healthy and Tony Gonsolin and come back? Do you get the best player out there?
Close the door. I don't know that they close the door. But Buehler, in my opinion, is going to do better elsewhere than he would from the Dodgers right now. As for the rest of that group, there's not a workhorse among them. And Jason Stark made the point on X today that Blake Snell is actually the workhorse of this group. His
I
career
saw
high is
that.
180 and two-thirds innings. So let's go through it. Ohtani, Dustin May, Gonsolin, all coming off surgeries. Clayton Kershaw coming off 2 surgeries. I assume he's going to re-sign back with them. You have as well Yamamoto, missed almost 3 months last year with a shoulder problem. Tyler Glasnow did not pitch after mid-August with his particular issue. So none of these pitchers can be expected to go through the whole season and then to October. What they will try to do is what they wanted to do this year. And that's kind of keep it going through the regular season and figure out who's healthy at a particular time, who needs a break, and then hopefully, in their minds, get everyone right for the postseason. It happened with Yamamoto that way, and it worked out really well. It did not work out well with Glasnow. Next year, there are even more variables because Ohtani's going to not pitch 180 innings. May and Gonsolin are not going to be those kinds of pitchers, even if they get Sasaki. His career high in Japan is 129 and a third, and he's 23 years old. They're going to take it easy with him too. So there is at some point, Alanna, a limit, right? You can't just keep bringing in guys and finding innings for all of them. But right now, it seems to me, even if they get Sasaki, they're fine.
All right. Still a lot to find out in this offseason, this hot stove period. All right. We're going to be right back here on Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal after a quick word from Scott Braun and Manscaped.
It's that time of year at Manscaped. Hit that 25% off site-wide sale plus free shipping at manscaped.com. If you want to look sharp for all those festive gatherings and maybe finally win that Best Groomed at the Family Dinner award, check out the latest masterpiece from Manscaped. It's the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. That Chairman Pro has Flex Adjust technology, which is basically like the holiday miracle of shaving. The blades and pivoting head adjust to every curve of your face, and it's gentle on the neck area as if they had the gift of foresight. And here's something that's going to make your grooming routine even easier. The Chairman Pro is waterproof. It also gets you up to 75 minutes of runtime on a single charge. And we all know that's a big deal here. So visit manscaped.com and enjoy 25% off site-wide with this sale. No code needed. That's 25% off your entire order plus free shipping at manscaped.com. FT fam, get after it.
Dude.
All right, it is that time here on Fair Territory where we give props to a certain dude or dudette. Ken, the honor is yours.
Alanna, because I'm a fair-minded individual and because I was awfully hard on Scott Boras last offseason, let's give him credit where credit is due. He's already taken 2 of his free agents off the board, 3 if you count Matt Chapman, who signed an extension with the Giants back in September. Kikuchi, 3 years, $63 million with the Angels. Snell, 5 years, $182 with the Dodgers. He has a long list of quality free agents this year, and clearly he is trying to make things happen a little quicker. Now, he would say, and he said this to me many times before, I can only do what the owners offer. I can only react to how they are reacting to me. Okay, fair enough. But at the same time, I've said this many times already. This offseason, with the quality of clients he has, Soto, Burns, Bregman, Alonso, Snell, etc., Manai is another one. It reminds me of 2018-19 when he went to the winter meetings and went Strasburg, boom, Rendon, boom, Garrett Cole, boom. I believe the winter meetings are going to be the same way. And Scott Boras so far, 2 really good deals for those 2 guys. And actually, Chapman's deal was very good as well. Dude of the week.
All right, dude of the week, I would say Scott Boras as well as the Angels also for actually spending some money in the offseason. Already some 5 signings, but my dude of the week is actually a dudette, and I can't love this woman enough. Kim Ng, of course, we just talked about her as far as the role with the Miami Marlins, but she's taken on a new role, if you will, and she is spearheading a pro softball league. So basically Major League Baseball for softball. Of course, former Marlins GM. She's been in this game for an unbelievably long time. So good for her. I think this woman is incredibly bright. She's very, very brilliant. She's a great baseball mind and obviously can take that into softball as well. Okay, time now for the John Fisher Dork of the Week.
It just
It's
gets me
usually,
emotional when I
yeah,
hear
I
that
know.
music.
I know. It usually has something to do with the A's, but for this week, neither Ken nor I are picking anything to do with Oakland or Sacramento or Las Vegas A's. Who is your dork of the week, Ken?
I'm going to go with Cubs ownership. And the reason for that is all we're hearing out of Chicago, the north side, is we're not going to be involved in any of the big free agents. We're going to just kind of do some other things. They're trying to trade Cody Bellinger. I get that. But where are the Cubs? The Red Sox, after sleepwalking through the past few off seasons, have finally arisen and awakened, and they're acting like a big market team should. The Cubs, playing in a division that is eminently winnable. I'm sorry, Milwaukee's really good, but the Cubs can obviously be better than the Milwaukee Brewers. They have more resources than Milwaukee Brewers. They have the ability, if they spend some money, to become a special team. They're a little bit away. We all recognize that. They need more. More starting pitching. I would say more offense as well, and a better bullpen. All of this. But look at that division. Milwaukee, they're not going to spend. We know that. They never spend. Pittsburgh, they're Pittsburgh. Cincinnati, okay, they might be a little bit better. They're trying to do some things, but they're Cincinnati. And St. Louis is clearly taking a step back. So the Cubs have an opportunity here to maybe seize control of this division, and they are squandering it. Cubs ownership, dorks of the week.
Yeah, St. Louis also seems like they can't wait to trade perennial All-Star and Platinum Gold Glove winner Nolan Arenado. We'll see where he ends up as far as the Keystone Corner is concerned. My dork of the week is actually anybody that believed that this was actually a true report. It was very funny because Mark Gooden said that per sources, Mets negotiations with Juan Soto have hit a snag because Brett Beatty is unwilling to give up uniform number 22 for the slugger. Now, obviously, Mark does a tremendous job. He is a legitimate reporter. This was tongue-in-cheek, people. This is not actually the case. Do you think in what universe would there be a situation where Brett Beatty could determine whether or not Juan Soto was coming to the New York Mets because he's not willing to give up his number? Come on, man.
No universe we're living in, Alanna.
There is not a universe that would actually happen, but people took this Ken and ran with it. I mean, with an owner that has more money than God, you think that they're not that Cohen couldn't offer, Brett Beatty a small island? I mean, come on now, guys.
Alanna, I will extend it beyond that particular tweet because this time of year you see all kinds of things on X. And once in a while, some guy or some woman will find a needle in a haystack. Some random fan will get a scoop. More power to them. At the same time, people should generally try to stick with the trusted sources, and they know who they are. And I would just suggest be very careful with what you believe.
And perhaps maybe get one or two sources before you run with it and tell everybody that Juan Soto is absolutely not coming to Queens because Brett Beatty wouldn't give him his jersey number. Come on. All right, yeah. Ken, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We're going to have a brand new episode of Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal on Monday with you. And we just wanted to say thanks to our friends at BetMGM. Before we let you go, let's shout them out. The BetMGM First Bet $1,500 offer when you use the bonus code FOUL. Get this offer when you download the BetMGM Sportsbook app or at BetMGM.com. Sign up, enter that bonus code FOUL, and deposit at least $10 into your new account. Place your first wager and receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. If the bet does lose, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Gambling problem or concern? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Ken, thanks for watching. Fair Territory and Dodgers Territory are coming up on Monday. We appreciate it. Have a good weekend, everybody.